Have you ever stopped to think that everything we are experiencing today could have been predicted centuries ago? It's scary but intriguing. Marie-Julie Jahenny, a French nun, made prophecies that sound like a disturbing echo of the events we are seeing unfold before us. Decaying morals, global crises, imminent destruction. Her words not only predicted catastrophe, but also indicated a spiritual collapse. And many of his warnings already seem to have been fulfilled, and this makes anyone stop and reflect. Imagine knowing that more than a century ago, someone already glimpsed the current state of the world with such clarity. And worse, that humanity ignored the signs. As we live in a society that values materialism and immediacy, Jahenny's words become even more disturbing. She spoke of natural disasters, wars, and, most importantly, our failure to preserve spiritual values. What if I told you that this moral collapse we are seeing in America was prophesied by her? The fear we are feeling now, whether due to violence, political instability, or global crises, was already predicted. And the most impressive thing, this is not something that is yet to come, but something that is already happening. Jahenny's predictions are not mere tales of the past, they are realities that we are living. So Marie-Julie Jahenny, a humble French nun, has become a name that resonates with those seeking to understand the supernatural. It is no surprise that his prophecies have gained relevance over the years, especially in troubled times. She was a figure marked by visions that anticipated major global events, many of which have been recorded and discussed to this day. His name, once restricted to devout circles, now resonates with scholars and curious people seeking answers in times of uncertainty. With each new analysis of her visions comes a new layer of understanding about what she saw. Among so many predictions, the idea that cataclysmic events were about to change the course of humanity stands out. The interesting thing about Marie-Julie Jahenny is that, even though she was an isolated nun, her visions embraced the entire world. She predicted disasters, wars, and a series of spiritual events that would shake nations and individuals alike. What makes his prophecies even more frightening is the precision with which some of them seem to have come true over time. Those who study his predictions note that his language not only points to external events, but also addresses the internal changes, the moral and spiritual battles that each of us faces daily. For those who wish to understand how to apply these teachings in their lives, it is important to reflect on the search for spiritual truth in the midst of external chaos. Among Jahenny's most mentioned predictions is his warning about a profound crisis of faith that would plague the world. She believed that many would move away from spirituality, and in doing so, open the door to great suffering. What she didn't know was how much her words would apply to the modern era, where materialism and individualism seem to have taken over society. Today, people can see the reflection of his prophecies by observing the state of moral apathy that permeates many cultures. It's not difficult to imagine how these predictions connect to the events we see in the news every day, from political crises to natural disasters that have shaken the world. Those who delve deeper into Marie-Julie Jahenny's predictions often find a sense of urgency in her words. She not only spoke of great events that would shake the world, but also encouraged her listeners to prepare spiritually. One of the most valuable lessons we can take from his words is the recognition of the importance of remaining firm in moral and spiritual values, regardless of what happens abroad. Many people, when faced with his teachings, choose to invest time in spiritual practices, such as meditation and reading sacred texts, in an attempt to find peace and protection in uncertain times. His predictions are not only a warning for the future, but also an invitation to inner reflection. One of the most curious events predicted by Marie-Julie Jahenny involves the 2012 Paris Olympic Games. For many, the Olympic Games are a symbol of unity, sport, and celebration of humanity, but Jahenny saw something darker in this event specific. According to their views, certain symbols and actions during these games would be a direct affront to God, disrespecting spiritual and moral values. Although the prophecy did not go into explicit detail about what the symbols would be, what is interesting is how, years later, some interpretations associated elements seen in the ceremonies and artistic representations of the time with a climate of contempt for divinity. For many, this was further evidence of the validity of Jahenny's words. During the Paris Olympic Games, spectators were able to observe a series of artistic performances that included controversial images. Some religious groups interpreted this as a reflection of what Jahenny had predicted, a global event, full of symbolism that, in some ways, denied the spiritual roots of humanity. For these critics, Certain aspects of the ceremony were seen as irreverent and even blasphemous, fueling the belief that something deeper was going on. While many treat these observations as exaggeration or mere coincidence, others see it as a clear sign that moral values were being sacrificed for the sake of a no-holds-barred spectacle. It is curious to note how, in times of great celebrations, these messages can go unnoticed. These interpretations of Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions may seem, at first glance, to be an exaggeration, but when analyzed in depth, there are those who see them as a serious warning about the state of modern spirituality. For those who believe in their prophecies, the Paris 2012 Games were a milestone in how the world is moving away from divine laws and falling into practices that prioritize the material and sensationalism. If we look at global trends, what we see is a society more concerned with entertainment and image than with the pursuit of a greater purpose. For many, this confirms what Jahenny anticipated, a seemingly harmless global event that would reveal how far we have strayed from the path of faith and morality. Looking at this point of view, we may wonder how can seemingly mundane events like the Olympic Games carry such a profound message about the state of the world. The answer may lie in the fact that, in essence, everything that involves humanity also reflects its spiritual condition. The choices we make, the symbols we choose to represent, and the events we promote are all connected to a larger web of meaning. For those who take Jahenny's words seriously, his warning about the Paris Games was more than a criticism of a specific event. It was a call for all of us to look more closely at the signs of moral decay that are often right in front of us, but that we ignore in the name of fun or spectacle. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies were not limited to just France or specific events. His visions predicted a series of global catastrophes caused mainly by the moral and spiritual decay of humanity. She warned that this drop in values would trigger natural disasters, such as earthquakes, hurricanes, and even the dreaded rain of blood. Many believe that what Jahenny saw was a reflection of the spiritual consequences of human actions. The way in which modern societies have moved away from basic spiritual principles would be, for her, the root of these evils. And when we look at the current state of the world with its climate crises and natural tragedies, it is difficult not to draw parallels between its predictions and reality. This prediction of global catastrophes has a special resonance in current times, where extreme weather events have become increasingly frequent. Marie-Julie Jahenny described that these disasters would begin in France, but would quickly spread throughout the world, like a wave of destruction. The connection she made between these events and the moral behavior of humanity leads us to reflect on the impact that our actions have not only on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level. It's as if the choices we make on a daily basis, whether individual or collective, can alter the natural balance of things. For those who align with his prophecies, the current state of the planet seems a clear reflection of this collapse. Interestingly, Jahenny saw France as the starting point for this chain of global events. For her, the country that was once seen as the firstborn son of the church would become the epicenter of spiritual and moral decadence. So many may question why France would occupy such a central place in his predictions, but for those studying his views, the decline of faith in the country, especially during the post-revolution period, is seen as a sign of this decline. From the moment spiritual values were left aside, the nation, according to her, opened doors for the entry of greater evils. This point is an important reflection for any modern society, which tends to place materialism ahead of the deepest values. In addition to physical disasters, Marie-Julie Jahenny warned of a kind of moral earthquake. It was believed that humanity would face a spiritual crisis, so profound that it would shake social and cultural structures. And when we look at the current scenario with polarization and increased violence, we can see echoes of this moral earthquake. In many ways, society seems more divided than ever, with intense ideological disputes and a growing disconnection between people. For those who believe in Jahenny's prophecies, these conflicts are just the beginning of something much bigger, something that will affect not only human behavior but also the planet itself. And in this sense, she warned that, without a change of direction, these crises would only intensify. Among the prophecies of Marie-Julie Jahenny, few are as terrifying as the vision of the 3 days of darkness. According to her, this event would represent one of the most critical moments for humanity. For 3 full days, an unearthly darkness would take over the world, and infernal forces would be released. During this period, demons would walk the earth, causing destruction and spreading chaos. Jahenny warned that those who left their homes or looked outside would be doomed. Their only protection would be to remain inside their homes, with doors and windows locked, and rely on the light of blessed candles, which would be the only means of illumination. This image, full of symbolism, arouses both fear and reflection. The description of the 3 days of darkness is more than a horror narrative. It contains a powerful spiritual message. Marie-Julie Jahenny saw this darkness as a test of faith and endurance. Those who remained steadfast in their spirituality would survive, while those who succumbed to despair or curiosity would be destroyed. This catastrophic scenario can be seen as a metaphor for the challenges we face in times of crisis. When everything seems to be falling apart around us, it's easy to give in to fear or hopelessness. Jahenny, however, advises that the path to survival, both literal and spiritual, lies in keeping faith, even in the darkest of times. And for this, spiritual preparation would be essential. For many who study the prophecies of Marie-Julie Jahenny, the 3 days of darkness are symbolic of the moral darkness the world faces today. The concept of an all-consuming darkness can easily be compared to the state of chaos and uncertainty that permeates many modern societies. In the same way that the French nun warned about the need for blessed lights to illuminate this dark period, we can interpret this as the search for spiritual guides and practices that keep us on the right path, even in times of great confusion. In times of crisis, many people turn to meditation, prayer, or spiritual practices to help them find balance. So this need for spiritual protection is something that continues to resonate to this day. Furthermore, the 3 days of darkness talks about the need for careful preparation. Marie-Julie Jahenny advised people to have blessed candles at home, as well as other spiritual items that could serve as protection. This can be interpreted in a practical way, being prepared for moments of crisis, both physically and spiritually. In the same way that blessed candles symbolize faith in times of darkness, we can prepare ourselves for the adversities of modern life by having an action plan for difficult situations, whether emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. The message here is clear. Darkness can come in many forms, but those who are well equipped, both in spirit and body, will be the ones who survive the chaos. Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions also pointed to a divine judgment that would fall on the nations. According to his predictions, this judgment would be a direct consequence of spiritual offenses committed by cities and countries that have strayed from divine laws. Among the places most affected, she mentioned France, with a particularly tragic fate for Paris, which would be destroyed by fire. Marseilles, on the other hand, would be swallowed by the sea. These dramatic images represent a type of divine retribution, where a nation's collective actions result in devastating consequences. For many who believe in his prophecies, these events are not just warnings, but rather a reflection on the spiritual state of modern societies. Divine judgment on the nations, as predicted by Marie-Julie Jahenny, goes beyond the physical destruction of cities. She believed that these catastrophes were, in essence, a form of purification, a way to cleanse the earth of the sins accumulated over time. In their views, the departure from spiritual values was what attracted these catastrophic events. Thus, cities like Paris, which she saw as symbols of excess and moral decadence, would be destroyed as an act of divine justice. When we look at the current scenario, with large urban centers increasingly immersed in crises of values, it is easy to draw parallels with Jahenny's warnings. In a world that values the material above the spiritual, his predictions serve as a reminder about the consequences of our collective choices. But Marie-Julie Jahenny's divine judgment was not limited to France. She saw this judgment as something that would spread across the globe, affecting nations that had also strayed from divine laws. The idea that a nation's morality can invite disaster is a concept that resonates to this day in many cultures. For those who believe in his prophecies, the current world, with its economic, social, and environmental crises, is a reflection of this spiritual distancing. Jahenny saw these events as signs that humanity needs to return to the principles that govern true peace and harmony. If we are to avoid total destruction, we must reconsider our values, both on a personal and global level. As bleak as these predictions may seem, Marie-Julie Jahenny also offered hope. She believed that divine judgment, although harsh, was an opportunity for renewal. After the destruction, she saw a new beginning, a time when humanity would have the chance to start over, purified of its mistakes. For many, this vision of a fresh start is motivation to reflect on the changes that can be made in the present. Judgment, as described by Jahenny, is not the end, but rather a turning point, a moment when nations can choose a new path. For those who wish to apply this wisdom in their lives, the advice is clear: review your values, seek spirituality, and prepare, not only for the trial, but also for the renewal that will come afterwards. Even with all the visions of destruction and catastrophe, Marie-Julie Jahenny predicted a future of spiritual renewal for humanity. After the period of great suffering, she saw the rise of a new divine kingdom, a time when humanity would come together under new spiritual leadership. This renewal would be marked by the coming of a holy king who, according to her, would unify people in a single religion and guide them towards true faith. For Jahenny, this king would not only be an earthly ruler but also a spiritual leader, a figure who would bring back the spiritual and moral principles that humanity had lost over time. This vision of hope is what offers comfort in the midst of their prophecies of destruction. So this spiritual renewal would not be a simple material reconstruction, but rather a profound transformation in people's souls and hearts. For Marie-Julie Jahenny, global destruction would serve as a catalyst for spiritual rebirth, where survivors would rediscover the importance of faith and moral values. It is interesting to think that, after a period of so much darkness and chaos, humanity would have the opportunity to start over in a more conscious and spiritualized way. This new world would be a place where people would be more connected with the divine and less focused on materialism and temporary pleasures. For those who wish to prepare for this renewal, Jahenny advised the search for spirituality now, as a way of being ready when that moment arrives. The figure of the Holy King, predicted by Marie-Julie Jahenny, is full of symbolism. This leader would not just be a political ruler, but someone chosen by God himself to lead humanity back to the right path. In modern times, it may be difficult to imagine a world unified under a single spiritual leadership, but Jahenny's vision suggests that after the fall of corrupt systems there will be a natural need for a moral and spiritual authority figure. For many, this prophecy is seen as a metaphor for a return to spiritual values, something that the current world seems to have left aside. Those who align with his visions see this future as a rebirth of faith, a time of great peace and harmony where spirituality will take precedence over materialism. So this period of spiritual renewal, as described by Marie-Julie Jahenny, would also represent an era of unity. Under the leadership of this holy king, all nations and cultures would unite in a single faith, eliminating the religious and political divisions that fragment humanity today. For many, this vision is difficult to imagine, especially in a world as polarized as ours, but Jahenny saw this unity as the natural result of a global spiritual purification. Suffering and destruction would be the fire that would forge this new era of peace. So this renewal, however, would only come to those who remained faithful and spiritually prepared, highlighting the importance of faith as a path to survival and future transformation. Marie-Julie Jahenny's life was marked by profound spiritual and physical suffering. She experienced the phenomenon of stigma, carrying the marks of Christ's wounds on her own body, something that directly connected her with the Savior's sacrifice. For many, stigma is a sign of a divine connection, a way in which a person's suffering is sanctified, offering an example of total dedication to faith. For Jahenny, this suffering was both a mission and a burden. Each wound was proof of his devotion and his ability to endure immeasurable pain in the name of something greater. Her life was not easy, but it was full of purpose, reflecting the kind of sacrifice she believed was necessary to redeem humanity. Marie-Julie Jahenny, Stigmata, not only identified her as a mystic, but also provided her with a means of direct communication with the divine. In her visions, she received clear and detailed messages, many of which served as the basis for her prophecies. Her mystical experiences were intense, including spiritual ecstasies where she said she had conversations with sacred figures, such as Jesus and the Virgin Mary. These views were crucial in shaping his understanding of the spiritual state of the world and the consequences of human actions. However, her physical suffering was constant, and throughout her life she endured countless illnesses and pains that seemed to be part of her spiritual mission. For those seeking to understand the role of suffering in her life, the answer lies in the connection she saw between pain and redemption. The stigma and suffering experienced by Marie-Julie Jahenny was not only a sign for her, but also for those around her. Many of his followers saw his pain as a reflection of the tribulations that humanity would face, a kind of microcosm of the spiritual and physical struggles that the world would have to endure. His stigmata were not just physical wounds, they were, for many, a symbol of the sacrifice necessary for spiritual renewal. By observing Jahenny's devotion and pain, his followers were inspired to face their own challenges with greater faith and resilience. She believed that suffering had a divine purpose, and that through it, people could reach a higher level of understanding and closeness to God. In addition to physical pain, Marie-Julie Jahenny also endured great emotional and spiritual challenges. She was often ridiculed and rejected by those who did not believe in her views or stigmas. Still, she remained steadfast in her mission, believing that her suffering, both internal and external, was part of a greater plan. For those seeking to learn from her story, there is a powerful lesson. The ability to endure suffering with grace and faith can transform adversity into a profound spiritual journey. While not everyone experiences physical stigma, everyone faces moments of pain and challenge, and Jahenny's life serves as a reminder that these experiences, when faced with courage and faith, can bring us closer to a greater purpose. When we look at the set of Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions and prophecies, what stands out is a profound message of warning and hope. Despite predictions of catastrophes and severe judgments, there is a common thread in their visions: the need for spiritual renewal. She believed that the world was immersed in a crisis of values, with people increasingly moving away from faith and embracing materialism. However, while it predicted destruction, it also pointed to a future where humanity could redeem itself, find its way back to spirituality, and achieve a new era of peace. This balance between punishment and redemption is what makes his prophecies so complex and at the same time so engaging. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies are not only warnings of impending disasters, but also an invitation to reflection. In every vision of destruction, there is a call for people to change their lives before it is too late. The fall of great cities, natural chaos, and divine judgment are not just external events, they symbolize the inner fall of humanity, a reflection of our disconnection with essential spiritual values. If we apply these views to the present, we can see clear parallels in global crises, whether environmental, political, or social. This makes his prophecies more relevant than ever for anyone seeking to understand the current state of the world and what can be done to change its course. Another important lesson from Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions is the idea that even in the darkest moments, there is always the possibility of renewal. The concept of a new era, led by a holy king, suggests that after the destruction, there will come a time of peace and spiritual reconciliation. It reminds us that no matter what crises we face, there is always the opportunity to start over, whether on a personal or global level. For those who take their prophecies seriously, this is a chance to reflect on their own lives, their choices, and how they can prepare for difficult times. Whether through faith, meditation, or strengthening spiritual bonds, Jahenny's messages encourage us to seek inner transformation. Finally, the life of Marie-Julie Jahenny, with her experiences of stigma and suffering, serves as a powerful example of dedication and spiritual sacrifice. She not only broadcast apocalyptic visions, but lived a life of extreme devotion, using her own body as a symbol of redemption. His prophecies are not only a guide to understanding what is to come, but also a call to action for us all. In the end, what she really leaves us with is a clear message. To survive and thrive in times of darkness, we must find light within ourselves. And this light, like the blessed candles of the 3 days of darkness, will be our greatest protection. Don't forget to download our book, The Secret Behind Biblical Prophecies. There are already more than 500,000 copies sold, and we are at the last units, so don't waste time and enjoy. I guarantee that you will acquire a lot of knowledge after reading this sensational book, written with great care and love for all the subscribers of our channel, completely based on the Holy Bible. The link is in the first pinned comment.